Hey, happy hump day, I guess. I was scrambling to be ready for this show after I'd forgotten to do a few items. My name is Mark, and I'm one of the co hosts for this show called Voices from Fandom. And the reason we started this show, Voices from Fandom, is basically we wanted everyone to be involved with this show, and not just us, but you guys as well. Those of you guys that are in the chat room right now, you do have the ability to actually come on and say hello. If someone would type something right now, and I'll demonstrate to the audience here how this runs. Voices from Fandom is basically a show about us guys. You guys are watching guests and people that are involved in the science fiction and horror fantasy world. Well, we're going to give you a voice, and we've kind of break this show into segments. Out of the three of us, each one of us will do a segment, and then at the end, we'll talk about. I guess we're calling it. I have to ask Joe. What are we calling this again? I forget, Joe. But we pretty much talk about things that are recent, such as what you've seen lately in the movie theaters, along with my incredible co-host. And excuse me while I try to look at my screen here. And there we go. Mark Street here and Joe Thompson.
Hey,
we're going to be your co-host for the next hour. And I'm a little out of breath right now, guys. How you doing, brothers?
good. How are you, man? Hey, so we didn't get the memo that we're supposed to dress up. What's the deal?
Yeah, no.
Look
Who's
at you in
dressed
your
up?
vest.
Yeah.
Well, you
If I knew,
notice
I
we're
would
following
wear
the
my
message,
vest.
right? I mean, I put this on today for a special reason,
Yeah.
and that's because we have our special guest who's actually sitting in the lobby listening to us. He can't say anything, so we can probably talk about him a lot before we bring him up. Here's a good example. If you guys are in our chat room and you're watching right now, this is going to be a very, very interesting show. But before we go forward with the show, we always like to bring people up to date on things that's current, not just at the beginning. Joe, what were we calling our chat session?
The bullpen.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I had it in my brain too. We call it the bullpen.
Yep.
Mark Street, Mark, intro, you guys can talk more about yourself than I can. Will you go ahead and introduce yourself to the guest for today?
Yeah, I'm Mark Street. I was a longtime photographer. I worked in Star Trek, Star Wars, Back to the Future, all kinds of cool stuff. And then I went on to do work at newspapers and various other things. Then went into the tech industry, and I now work for the Dice Tower. So I am a content. Yeah, it's the best job I've ever had. Well, I mean, with the exception of working with Dan MADSEN, of course. But
did you actually?
The Dice Tower has just given me such huge, amazing things, and it's just incredible. And I get to be on camera, something that I never thought I would be about. Right? If you told me 10, 15, or 20 years ago that hey, you're going to be on camera or you'll be up in front of thousands of people, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing
it. Well, Mark does some incredible videos on YouTube.
Yep.
With
so
Dice
check
Tower,
out the Dice Tower channel if you want to see.
Yeah, when there's a new game that comes out, you're going to get your chance, Mark. You're going to get your chance to promote your channel here for a minute. Sure. Let me go around the horn here, and then we have our other professional. In a sense, we're all kind of semi-professionals, whatever. But Joe Thompson is definitely a professional, as well as Mark Street. Me, I'm just the bum in the neighborhood. Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Mark. So longtime geek my entire life. Cut my teeth on Star Wars and fantasy novels and comic books when I was a kid, and grew up and full-time nerd now. But I work in the payroll industry by day, and by night I'm a part-time vigilante. Actually, I draw. I do a lot of independent artwork, independent
amazing
comics,
artist.
a lot of a lot of stuff for like local bands, local businesses, long-running business kind of arrangement with a local bar that's like best bar in the area every like 10 years running, and we do all kinds of like heavy metal and science fiction themed t-shirts that are all kind of like really sought after. So just a lot of fun, man.
Awesome. Hey, before we go into me, I want you to keep going, Joe, because in terms of special events or current events. I'm sorry, not special events, current events in our world of fandom, in geekdom and nerdism, and the things that we normally do each and every year. Something happened this week. I want to bring Joe up. Go ahead and talk about it, Joe.
Yeah, so we unfortunately lost one of the greatest voices of a generation.
So sad. So sad.
Yeah, Peter David, kind of has left us, has left the building. He's such an incredible talent. I mean, people were going to know him from different avenues in life. I mean, I know that there's a huge Star Trek fandom for him, for his comic books and novels and the New Frontier series. But I know him from comics. So he was part of the golden age, my golden age of comics. I mean, not the golden age, but my golden age. When I was a teenager, I would drive 45 minutes away to the closest comic shop, and I was picking up, all the X-Men books, and he was writing X Factor. And he had just a fantastic run on X Factor. Hilarious, brilliant, touching. He also had an incredible, no pun intended, incredible Hulk run, where he made Hulk just absolutely just, fascinating as a character. He wasn't just this dumb brute. Other people might know him for his other television work that he did, on Babylon 5. Yep. He wrote for a couple of the greatest animated series of all time, Young Justice and Ben 10.
That's right.
I mean, the guy was just, a legend. It's a shame. I know he has tons of awards, Eisner's, Wizard, all kinds of stuff. So just really sad, man. He was a very talented, gifted writer, and we've lost a very powerful, talented voice. So
I had totally forgot he had worked with Ben 10. I had totally forgot that.
Yeah.
Well, I've known Peter for decades. Known him before he met his wife. He was a big part of the Baltimore crew. Always just come to shore leave and Farpoint on occasion, and hang out with a lot of the other writers and editors from Marvel, like Robert Greenberger, Howard Weinstein, who wrote Star Trek books, and also wrote classic animated Star Trek episode. I want to say the Slaver Weapon, but I don't think that's right. But either way, Peter and Bob Greenberger and Howie used to do Shore Leave's version of Mystery Science 3000. They were the guys that were sitting in the audience, and whatever movie was up on the screen, they would comment on it. So I'm going to miss Peter. I knew he had some health issues for years, unfortunately, but it had gotten really bad recently. But he was just such a funny guy, a guy that will talk about anything real quick and had, great sense of humor, the whole 9 yards. So we're going to miss Peter.
Ironically, my oldest daughter is named for during his run of X Factor. There was a point where the character Wild Child, who's kind of like a Sabretooth, kind of like low-key Sabretooth. Yeah. So
such a great character.
He was tricked by Mystique. Mystique had learned how to not only change her physical appearance, but she was able to change her pheromones. So he thought she was Aurora from Alpha Flight. So my daughter's name is Aurora from that scene. She's not named after Aurora, the Sleeping Beauty. She's named after Aurora from Alpha Flight. So that's the scene.
I actually was reading Alpha Flight when it first came out because I was a big John Byrne fan.
Yeah.
And artwork was basically done by John. So that attracted me first off. And then, of course, the hodgepodge of characters was even better. So look, we got a busy show. We're going to move along and try to move along quickly on this so we can go ahead and get to our guests. Anyone that's watching, well, not anyone, I'm sure who's watching, you're everyone that's watching right now. If you can go ahead and share the link for this show, we really appreciate it. There are people who are popping up for our guest today, of course, when we bring him on. you can ask questions. If you're in the chat room, you can actually make comment or a question while you're here. Like I put up a previous comment, you can do the same. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our segments. We do 3 segments. Oh God, I'm brain farting right now. Mark, you're going to do your segment first. So why don't you go ahead and take that away, my friend?
Yeah, real quick before we play the clip, I'm going to bring a lot of gaming stuff because that's what I do for the Dice Tower. But this one was unique because it's a comic series that's being turned into a board game. So let's play the clip.
Let's play the clip. Okay, here we go.
So, what if your favorite fairy tales weren't just bedtime stories, but battlegrounds? Neverwar is set in a broken multiverse where Oz, Neverland, Wonderland, and Fairyland all collide, tied together by a devastating war that begins in the trenches of World War I. As boundaries between realms crumble, a much darker force begins to rise. AMP Comics has created something truly unique here. 3 issue number 1s, each from a different character's perspective. You can start your journey with any of them, and no matter which path you take, the stories eventually converge. In issue 1A, you meet Dorothy, a nurse in World War I who's swept away by a tornado back to war-torn Oz, where old allies have changed and the lines between savior and sorceress begin to blur. Issue 1B introduces Georgie Bird, a young British soldier who is the grandson of Alice, who chases a rabbit into no man's land and emerges in a corrupt wonderland, now ruled by a familiar and yet terrifying face. In issue 1C, we have Peter Pan. He is a German reconnaissance pilot whose plane is ripped from the sky by Dorothy's tornado, landing him in Neverland, a place where he no longer can fly and must confront a darker destiny. All right, so the big thing about this is that I love that kind of what if story. Like, what happens if this? I love to propose all kinds of various things in that way. So this is great for me because it has all this crazy crossover. And by the time you get to the final issue, I think it's going to be issue 8, all the stories will have converged and all those lines will cross. So it's something I'm pretty excited about. And also, it's a very unique preview or video I get to do because I don't get to do comic books very often. So they're teasing the board game by starting with the comics and revealing that story and then having the board game show up a little bit later where you're playing the story. And that's kind of why I brought it this time, just because it has a really unique crossover. And I love any time they can take those characters and do something totally unique with them. And I just try to keep this real short, but it is definitely something I really enjoy, like the What If series from Marvel and stuff. And this has that vibe to it for sure. So that's my voice this week.
Well, that's fantastic. Look, let me tell you, we have 2 mega geeks here on this show. I'm a mini geek, okay, but the 2 mega geeks are gamers too. They love their gaming. They love their board games, which is a step 10 times above my Monopoly playing, and my Mousetrap playing, and my Operation playing. Now you want me to think too?
Yes.
I was never into Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, but I love the recent movie Dungeons and Dragons, and of course watching Stranger Things that kind of brought me back up to Dungeons and Dragons again. But I'm just so happy that we have Mark here because I'll be learning as we go along. This is only our 2nd episode for those that are watching us for the first time. This is we do this monthly, and last month was our first episode, and it kicked butt. We really enjoyed having this. Was going to be even better. But just having these guys, and I picked them for a specific reason, and it's mainly because they're geekier than I am. I'm the guy that normally stands on stage and entertains the crowd and shake my head like I know what they're talking about when they say, "Oh, yeah, did you see the last week's episode of whatever."
That's awesome.
But then we go on to our. You got any questions, Joe, for Mark about the game? Do you know of the game he was pushing?
He talked to me about it a little bit offline, and honestly, it looks fascinating. The premise is fantastic. I also love those kind of mashups. I love alternate kind of realities, alternate histories, things. And I think I kind of hesitate to call it gimmick, but the idea of like bringing in a comic book series as well as a board game, that is a fantastic idea. There was a TV show that kind of did a similar thing for Sci-Fi Channel, where they did an MMO, a massively multiplayer online game, along with a TV show that they were concurrent. So things that would happen in the game would show up in the show and vice versa. So it's kind of, I love that multimedia platform strategy. It looks awesome. When is the game coming out?
So the game is in development right now, and they're looking at different publishers. So it'll probably be another month or two before the game starts to see the light of day, which is why they want to start teasing the story. And the comics come out in June, so you can start to engross yourself in the story. And I believe it's going to be 8 or maybe 10 issues, something like that, and they all kind of come together. And there's multiple characters. Awesome. It really neat. And the other neat thing is that they have this premise that like all of the Peter Pans eventually turn into Captain Hooks and so forth. So so they go down that path, and then like
that sounds very irritating.
Yes, right. So there's this whole circle of things happening, right? And so it's pretty.
Do you know who the publisher is by chance of the comic?
It's AMP Comics.
Okay, nice. All right, I'll have to put it on my comic read list at my local shop.
Definitely check it out. And I'm pretty sure they're launching in June. So
nice.
Yep.
Awesome.
Wow, that's fantastic. All right, so coming up next, okay, I'm going to show you guys a really good thing that Marc did in promoting our guest that's sitting in the lobby watching us as we speak. I thought it was fantastic. Then we're going to move on to Joe, but once again, we are Voices from Fandom. If you are, in fact, in the chat room and you have a question for our guests or any of us, we definitely won't answer it, but put it up anyway. I mean, we may be in a good mood today. We like to see people chime in on this show. So be right back with this shortly.
Dan MADSEN, fan club founder for Star Trek and Star Wars, legend wrangler, celebration creator, and real-life Kadoo handler. I'm lucky to call him my friend, and Fandom's lucky to have him. He is the Fandom Multiverse. Yeah, that was really fun. That was super fun to write. I really loved it.
Oh man, and what a great subject matter to promote. I mean, it's fantastic. Hey, how you doing? There's Jennifer. She's told us, and here's Rose. Hi, Rose. Thank you for being here, sweetie. All right, next up, our co-host Joe Thompson has his segment that he's going to promote, and then we're going to move right on to our special guest for this evening. So, Joe, why don't you go ahead and start us off here?
Appreciate it, Marc. So this week I'm doing something a little bit different. This month, I should say, doing something a little bit different from my last show. And I will say that each, because I'm such a pop culture junkie, each session I'm going to do something a little bit different. So, I am a comic reader. I read novels. I, love, music and games, everything. So right now I'm going to talk about this game that's kind of taking the video game world by storm right now. It's this game called Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It kind of flew under a lot of people's radar at first because, it was shown last year during the Summer Gaming Fest. People thought it looked cool, but it's a lot different when you get hands-on something versus when you actually, just see like a preview of it. Kind of like similar to when you watch a movie, you just see a trailer and maybe it looks good. Maybe the movie ends up being a big stinking turd, or maybe you watch a trailer, it doesn't really impress you. Watch the full movie and you're blown away. This game is done by a small French development team, which is already a little bit different from most games, called Sandfall Interactive. Roughly about 34 developers on this game. It kind of sometimes would wax and wane from 20 people to up to 40, but on average, there was only about 34 people consistently working on this game. And it's a turn-based game, and I'm not really into turn-based video games so much anymore. When I was younger, I was, but I prefer, if I'm going to do turn-based, I'll do actual Dungeons and Dragons. But what makes this different is that when you're in the combat, you actually have to like dodge and parry and like hit, buttons to like activate certain things. So it's a very dynamic turn-based game. And Mark, if you want to show some of the pictures while I'm going through this, I'm going to talk a little bit about the premise, and then I'll show you a quick video of me playing it. And the premise is it's such a cool idea. It's so different from everything out there. It takes place in this dark fantasy, like Belle Epoque, if you're familiar with that French art movement setting. And every year for the last 67 years, the people of this isolated island, Lumiere, suffer an event called the Gamage. And the Gamage, this entity, this like godlike deity known as the Paintress, she paints an ever-decreasing number. And if you see on that first photo, you'll see the number kind of in the background. And that each year when that number appears, all the humans that are equal to that age or above it disappear. They kind of, it's almost like the snap from Thanos, where they kind of fade into ashes and flowers. And then after the Gamage, every year, the Lumiere, that island, they send out an expedition of volunteers to head a mainland effort to slay the Paintress before she can paint a new number, So their number 33, it started on 99, 67 years this has been happening. And every generation before them has died. So if this generation dies, then people are going to only live to 32. It's just a wild concept. If you can see that one photo with all the different accolades, this game has the highest Metacritic rating of any game in recent years. This little independent studio, they sold 1 million copies in the first 12 days. They sold 2 million copies in the first 2 weeks. Wow. And after 33 days, they sold 3.3 million. So they basically made $1.8 billion on what we're being kind of told is maybe a development kind of cost of something around like maybe 20 million. I mean, it's gangbusters.
Yeah,
it's only an option for either a TV show or a movie. Expect like a Last of Us treatment for this, probably coming in the next like 3 to 4 years.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
And if you want to run the clip, you can take a look at just how beautiful and dynamic. This is very close to the end. So, spoiler warning.
Let's have some fun.
That's pretty cool.
Wow.
So it has that Final Fantasy vibe, but it looks like it's way more, the turn-based is way more puzzly.
Yeah, it is. You have to be very deliberate with your actions. And
cool.
It definitely borrows a lot from Final Fantasy, like the modern ones from 7-Up.
Yep.
It borrows from Legend of the Dragoon, even the Super Mario RPG.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So this is the game that's taking the world by storm. Everybody's taking notice. I promise you, if you're into video games, in the next 3 years or so, you're going to see a ton of games copy this.
Oh, big time. Yeah, people probably scrambling already to do it.
Yep.
Wow.
What platforms?
It's on Xbox, PlayStation, PC. So everything except for the Switch. And when the Switch 2 comes out in a week, it'll probably be ported over to the Switch pretty quickly.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So this is, how out of, touch. Are they gonna remake Pong? I mean, I miss Pong.
There's all kinds of new versions of Pong, actually.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Well, sign me up. I can still hook it to my TV and everything, plug it with the AV cables, and
Actually, some of them are just standalone units. So
Yeah.
bravo. I want that. I want Asteroid.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I want Galaga.
Yeah.
Galaga.
They have,
Bring that stuff back.
One Up has you can hang it on your door, and it's got like Miss Pac-Man and like 10 other games.
Wow, that's what I want.
Yeah, I think
that's what you need, Mark.
Been out recently.
That's my level. That's my level. Because I'm telling you, I missed out when the big game consoles came on that gave you my thumbs got all screwed up. I think I broke one or two of them. Trying to figure out where's an ABC without looking. I'm a wimp. I'm bad at it, and I'm old. I think. By the way, I have not introduced myself at all. There's Rose. My name is Mark Lee, and I'm I'm one of the co-hosts for this show. Hello, folks. Oh, people are popping in now.
Cool.
Hello, guys. Chris Flowers. Is that Amy's? Related to Amy Flower? I don't know.
No, that's a buddy of mine. Hey, Chris. What's up?
Hey, Chris. And this is interesting because this is the way I met these guys, as well as our special host, guest host that we're going to be bringing on after I finish running my mouth. I'm a self-proclaimed, not really,
yes,
but I'm a self-proclaimed international show host. I've been hosting conventions. Guys, you ready for this? I've been hosting conventions. I've been a part of conventions for 40 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
40 years.
That's awesome.
I've been doing conventions in Germany. I've done, Dragon Con, Mega Con, you name any other con. I've been, a host of. And the way I got some of these guests on our shows is because I've actually sat next to them on a stage and say, hey, look, give me your phone number. The gun wasn't loaded, but I asked anyway, give me your phone number. But good to see you guys. So what do you say, guys? You want to bring our next guest up?
Yeah,
let's do it. Bring in Dan.
So before we do that, here's some ground rules, okay? Due to the fact that I can see, even yours, Joe, I can see all of your comments and your posts. We encourage it because we do have questions of our own to ask this incredible guy. But we wanna hear some very unique and unusual questions. And I actually asked this when I'm up on stage. Stanley's sitting next to me, and the last thing I want to hear is, what made you think of the Hulk? Let's try to stump him because Dan has been on so many, and I hate the word podcast. I really don't like that. We're a webcast. I don't care what anybody says. We're a webcast.
Yeah, we're a webcast.
And Dan has been on so many of them that he's heard every question in the world. I think you guys really know his credentials probably better than he does at this point. If you can come up with something original, and I'm not saying don't ask nostalgic questions. We want to hear that too, because it'd be stupid if we're hearing new stuff about his dog or his wife or his house or things like that, and he never talks about then what kind of show would this be if we did not talk about that kind of stuff? So we have something I'm going to play you guys. I'm also the board, guys, so I'm Mr. Octopus right now, trying. Plus, my eyes are bad right now. Excuse me.
Don't ask him about his eyes.
Yeah, right. Don't ask me about my eyes. This is something that I found, courtesy of this group here. With my apologies, tried to contact them, but I don't think they'll mind, especially with the guy who's responsible for it. This will answer maybe one of your questions. So take a look at this. Actually, it's more of a listen than anything. Here we go.
Series. It was in about 1986 that I get a call out of the blue. I'd been doing the Star Trek official fan club for some time and had put out the Star Trek Communicator magazine. It was quite a slick color professional magazine. And that's when I got a call from the head of licensing at Lucasfilm, Howard Rothman. And he said, we've decided to close down the fan club internally here. But he said, we've seen what you've been doing with Star Trek. And he says, George Lucas saw it, and we thought, we wondered if you might be interested in taking over running the Star Wars fan club.
Can I just pause you one sec,
Yes.
Dan? How wild were you? Like, I would have been hitting my head. I just would have been going absolutely nuts if I knew George Lucas had seen what I was up to. Were you pinching yourself, or was this is what your life sort of had been for a very long time?
Yeah, no, I was pinching myself. I couldn't believe Star Wars was still this magical thing from my youth that I never imagined I would ever become involved with. So to get the opportunity to fly out to Skywalker Ranch and meet George Lucas and sit down with Howard Rothman and talk about taking over the Star Wars fan club was mind-boggling to me. And when I got out,
wow, Mark, if you could do the honors.
Yes. So today's guest, as you know, is a true legend in the world of fandom. He launched the official Star Trek and Star Wars clubs. He created Star Wars Celebration, interviewed icons like Spielberg and Lucas, and even appeared in The Phantom Menace as a Cadoo handler. He's a publisher, he's a publicist, actor, and truly one of the kindest humans I know. Please welcome my friend, Dan MADSEN.
Holy crap. That was clap, 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 clap. I could not have done that any better. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dan MADSEN. How are you, dude?
I'm good. Mark and everybody here on the show. I'm very good. Thank you. My favorite part of all of Mark's thing is the way he does all of this is Dan MADSEN. He's one of the greatest people ever lived.
That's right.
Yeah. That's my favorite part of all of it.
I love it. I try to, in all my videos, everything I do, everything has to be epic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Their epic voice is no doubt what you were using, Mark.
Yes, I have.
Mark Street missed his calling as a movie announcer.
I think so. I have so many
one man,
like, on the dice
one mission,
one world, in a world.
Their voice, and I always use the example.
Dan, we all have questions for you, but
yes,
before we break off into that, I like if you could tell us a little bit of how you met and know Mark Street.
Wow. Well, man, that goes back a long way. I mean, I've known Mark longer than just about anybody other than my mom and dad and my brother. Hi, Jennifer. Do
you remember the year?
My gosh, Mark, I think, didn't you come down? You lived in Fort Collins. I was in Aurora.
Right, but I was at school at the Colorado Institute of Art.
That's right.
1987.
And didn't you tell me you were a photographer and you wanted to come down and see the offices and talk to me about photography and such?
Yeah, and it was a photojournalism assignment for school.
That's right.
The assignment was putting something together, like building something. And in those days, we were still using acetate and big boards.
Oh my God.
To pull out the magazine and build it out, right? So I had some really, really nice shots of Dan, pasting up and getting the mag ready for print.
Wow.
So
that was so long ago. I mean, when was that, Mark?
1987.
87. I mean, that's how long I've known Mark. And then I so loved what Mark was doing that we brought him on board to be the official photographer. And he photographed everything especially in the merchandise sections for Star Wars, Star Trek, Back to the Future. I mean, he did all of that stuff, and I still got all those images.
And in Willow too.
In Willow,
we had an insert into the album,
that's right,
the soundtrack, and so I did all the photos for that.
That's right.
Any conventions we went to, like the Chicago convention that we put on, I did the photos for that.
That's right. Yeah, Mark was our official photographer. So if we needed pictures taken, Mark was the guy.
Yeah. My biggest disappointment was when you went out to Willow and I couldn't go because I was in school.
That's right. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a long way too, because we had to go fly to England for that. But and out of a working relationship turned a friendship, and Mark's been my friend now for I think he's my oldest friend, really. I mean, I've known Mark longer than anybody.
Same. Yeah, same.
Wow.
I'm the same way. Even you lose touch with folks in high school and college, but Dan and I over the years never lost touch. So
That's right.
And as I had kids, Dan became uncle to my girls. And
Really?
Love his family, love his girls. Absolutely. We've been close with his family and my family, and we've known each other for so long that he feels more like family than friend.
Definitely. And
that's awesome.
I mean, it's because of Dan that I have my own corner of the Star Trek, Star Wars, Back to the Future universes. I mean, I would never have been able to do all those amazing things without Dan. So
well, it's amazing what Dan has accomplished in those decades. I mean, I guess we can say decades. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably the oldest one here on the screen right now, and I am part of the May 25th, 1977 club. If you guys know what that is.
I'm there with you, Mark. In fact, Mark Lee, I've known you forever too.
I think so. I don't
know when I first met you, but man, it's been forever.
It's been forever. I don't know. I don't know if it was even before Celebration 1. I don't think
it was.
So. I think it was after.
No, it was before Celebration 1.
Oh, it was?
When I met you, when I met you, Mark Lee, it was before I even had Star Wars. I was just doing Star Trek.
You got to be kidding! Wow.
No, that's how long ago it was. I didn't even have Star Wars as one of my projects when you and I had first got together.
Then I never thought I could honestly say I can die now.
Just leave me in your will, okay?
I have met Dan MADSEN for decades. My God, you know this guy for a long time as well.
Absolutely.
And you know what, Dan?
I'm working with him right now on another project. In fact,
hey, I think I know of that project.
A reboot.
Yeah, I'm keeping my mouth shut, but I think I know of that. His agent and I are very close.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he brought me along the way for a long time as well. I used to do all the celebrity auctions out in California for many years that way, and but I could not find the photo, Dan, of you guys. I think you were speaking to him. I don't know if you were on the set, but I could swear you were in a actor's chair. Does that sound familiar to you?
TJ Hooker.
That was. Oh my God, that's so long ago. That was on the set of TJ Hooker. Out in Los Angeles. It was the first time I ever interviewed him. Not that picture, but we went on location to where they were shooting. It was some neighborhood in LA, and they just put a couple of chairs up for us. And when he was done shooting, he came over and we sat and chatted for about, 30, 45 minutes. And it was a good time. It was my first time ever meeting him. It was a little nerve-wracking because I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but he treated me really well, and it was a great first interview.
That's great. Hey, look, since Joe's the newbie here in terms of meeting you, I'm going to give him the first question to ask you that I'm sure you'll give a great answer to. So, Joe, you got something you want to ask Dan?
Well, Dan and I have known each other for only a few minutes, but I'm sure he probably already feels like it's forever. So
I do, Joe. I feel like you're my brother already.
Wow, Mark, way to put me on the spot, Mr. Lee. Actually, Mark kind of, we've talked about this a lot about how, look, I'm a self-aware nerd, so I also see people, at conventions. I'm a longtime Dragon Con convention goer.
My favorite convention, Dragon Con.
My first one was in '92, and I went a couple smattering of times through the '90s and the early 2000s, and then around 12 years ago, I was like, man, this is my con, and so I've been every year since. So
I hear you.
It's a party. It's nerd Mardi Gras.
It totally is, and I've never seen such amazing cosplay anywhere I've ever gone. It's just, and it's mind-boggling. They pull things out of the fans. They pull things out of, you'd never think, whether it's something out of a book or a TV commercial or a beloved character from something from years ago. It's incredible what they do.
I ran
It
into
is.
I ran into a group playing like a cosplaying from a book series I read. There's no comic books or video games. I mean, it's a New York Times bestseller series, but I instantly recognize them, and then they invite me over and try to get me to go to some of the panels. I already had things going on, but you're right. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah,
It
that's
is.
cool.
It is the number one convention of its type, speaking to folks who've never been to a Dragon Con before in the world. And I think I'm on my 26th year, maybe 27th year. And it's really interesting. We were having a conversation before the show started, guys. And do you know who was my last panel at Dragon Con last year?
I remember you being there, but I don't remember it right now. Who it was?
Just last year. You weren't there last year, were you? Then?
No, I was not there last year.
Last September, it's Labor Day every year, and my last panel that I moderated, which was very interesting, I have to tell you later, was Walter.
Oh, Walter. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I didn't have a chance to chime in on that, but it's interesting. You told me, and I didn't know Walter was that old, but Walter's how old again?
88.
Wow.
And Mark, I was just going to add about Dragon Con. One of my favorite things about Dragon Con is the parade. And I love because you're always out there entertaining the audience that's sitting on the sides, and the kids just absolutely love you. I mean, you're an integral part of not only Dragon Con, but that parade as well.
I mailed your money already. You can stop.
Okay.
This is for the royalties.
I can't flip you a 20 here.
That's all right. Just put it in the mail. That's
Put it in the mail.
All right. Well, let me not waste everybody's time. I'll get to my question. My question. How about this? This is one of the couple, because I know that you get asked the same questions just like every other person that goes to the cons does. So one I don't think you probably have been asked before is and I'll save another version of this for later on if we need more questions. But the first one is there an older like science fiction or fantasy like based either movie or series that you would like to see get remade in modern day with modern technology and like the improvements in writing and acting that you think is worthy of a revival? And I mean, I know a lot of people don't like reboots, so I mean, let's even it could be even a reimagining. It could be something obscure that nobody's heard of, just whatever you want.
Now that's a very good question. I'm not really sure of one. I can't think one I'm really off to. I mean, I was going to say, something that I loved even long before Star Trek was Planet of the Apes, but they did a reboot of that, which I know a lot of people loved. I didn't. I was not one of the new Planet of the Apes fanatics. And I just absolutely adored the original films. I'd go out to Kmart and buy the little black and white Super 8 films. And I had my movie projector that I got for Christmas one year, and I'd sit there in my bedroom with a screen, and I'd just watch them over and over. And of course, it wasn't the whole movie; it was just, it was just clips from each of the films. But man, I watched those over and over and over. I wore them out basically. Man, as far as something that's older, are you talking about a TV show or a book or what?
I was thinking more either a movie or a TV series, either way.
Man, almost everything that I loved as a kid has been redone now. I mean, really, it has, because I liked a lot of the old stuff that a lot of people liked, and they've now remade it into things that some are good and some aren't so good. I don't know. I mean, I was a Disney fan. I was a comic book collector. I still love going back and looking at the old TV shows for Spider-Man and Captain America and the Hulk, and how much I love those shows. I mean, that was the best thing we had at that time, and now they look cheesy, but back then, I was thinking, wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And I tell my wife all the time when we're at a toy store or we're at an antique store, I'm thinking, God, I said, man, I was born at the wrong time. If they had all these amazingly cool action figures they have now, when I was a kid, I would have just I'd have been broke because I would have wanted every single one of them. The one thing I did collect back in the day, and you guys may or may not remember them, is that 7-Eleven had Slurpee cups, and they had DC Comics and they had Marvel ones, and each Slurpee cup had one of their characters on it. And I went absolutely bazooka over those cups, and I would ride my bike down to the 7-Eleven, and the guy would go back into the back with me, and he'd pull out the cups out of the box and show me what they had, and he'd give me whatever I didn't have, and I'd get a Slurpee in my, Superman cup or my Batman cup or something. And I collected every single one of them. And I just recently gave them to my son Hayes, and they're his now, and that's one of my prized collectibles that I wanted to pass on to him.
I did the same thing. I had the Hulk one. I had the Hulk one, and I would fill it up with because 7-Eleven in Orlando where I grew up had the Mountain Dew was like the number one Slurpee flavor down there.
Yeah, right.
I would fill up the Slurpee with the green, with the Hulk on it, and I was like, yeah, I thought that's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, those cups were my passion, and I displayed them out on my Chester doors, and everyone displayed, and that was my pride and joy back in the day.
Nice. So would you like to see the Planet of the Apes remade more true to the original?
Yes, I'll tell you the honest truth. One of the things I loved about the original films was I loved the costumes they had on.
Yeah, they were great.
The gorillas were incredibly cool, and I loved like General Ursus, the big helmet like hat he had on. That was so cool, and I just absolutely loved that. And so when the new movies started coming out, and they were just naked apes basically, and I'm like, man, you've lost them. One of the coolest things about those old movies was that they had these incredible costumes, and you've just kind of taken them away. And so I don't know. I mean, I saw other people are like, well, but the stories were great, and there was a lot of action and stuff. And that part is true. But as far as visually, I would really missed them making the apes more, I guess, human, you might say, having costumes and helmets and masks and things. That's what I missed. That was the thing I thought they missed out on it for me. But each his own,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they did a board game, and it's in the style of the old show.
Oh, really?
The artwork.
No kidding. Oh, wow. I have to see that.
Oh,
God, that is awesome. By the way, Mark, that story you told about the comic and then the board game, that's very cool. Yeah. I love that crossover of starting out with the comic and then coming out with the board game that connects to it. That's a brilliant and extremely cool connection.
I love it so much. I can't wait to play the game.
I have the next question. Me. So Dan, I don't know if you realize it or not. Maybe you don't. But you and I. Oh, by the way, folks that are watching, if you have questions for Dan, go ahead and post them in, and we'll put them up on the screen so Dan can take a look at them. So if you have questions for Dan and what Dan is associated with, which is something else I'm about to get into, it's a personal association. It's not a professional association. Dan, you and I we share the same passion. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but if you are on Dan's Facebook page, he always brings it up. And it is a passion of mine, one of two. And the first one is Abraham Lincoln.
Yep.
And then the second one is the West.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I'm a history buff. I am a big history buff as well. I'm a classic history. I just heard this is where I witnessed two Gen Zers testing themselves on a question that I kept my mouth shut about, but I was banging my head on my desk. And they asked one Gen Zer asked the other Gen Zer, what civilization created democracy? Long story short, they were positive it was Rome. It was the Romans.
No.
I'm like, the civilization that enslaved people did not create democracy. So,
no. At least they didn't. At least they didn't say, you know, Czechoslovakia or something like that. Or
at least. So, how did you come up with your passion on Abraham Lincoln?
Ooh, man, it goes back a long way. You know, it goes back to, you guys might remember the PBS series, The Civil War by Ken Burns.
Oh yeah,
Watched it. I've watched it. Yeah.
I was not in. I mean, I always admired Lincoln, always, but I had not been into Lincoln like I became until I watched that show. And when I watched that series, I suddenly realized, I mean, what an amazing man this guy was, and I loved his compassion, and I loved his decision making, and I loved how he handled himself throughout the Civil War. And so I bought one book, and then I bought another book, and then I buy a magazine, and you know, one thing leads to another, and now my wife calls our house the MADSEN Lincoln Museum. I mean, yep. I've probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my Lincoln collection, and it's on every wall in the house. And it is such a passion. And my wife has fallen in love with the town of Gettysburg. We went back there, you know, where Lincoln gave his famous Gettysburg Address. We went back there, fell in love with it, and we both love it, and I love it for the Civil War history and the Lincoln connection. So we're planning on moving back there either the end of this year or next year. We're going to move to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I've never lived anywhere else.
Kidding?
Never lived anywhere else but Aurora, Colorado, my whole life. But it's time to make a change, and my Lincoln collection will come with me, and it'll be in a place where it can really be appreciated.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, that's breaking news.
That's breaking. Well, I've mentioned it a few times, but yes, it is. We're actually, in fact, we're going a couple of weeks. We're going there to look at homes and look at some of the places where we could live and make our decision.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm from not Pennsylvania, the next state down, or is it two states? I'm from Maryland originally.
Oh,
so
sure.
Baltimore.
Yeah, I remember you're from Baltimore. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been to Gettysburg many times too, because it was within driving distance. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. Yeah, and I can't wait until this special with Kevin Costner on the West starts.
Oh, well, it actually has already. It started Sunday night, and it had an episode last night. And now it comes on. And now it comes on every Monday, I think, for another 7 weeks or something. But oh my God, Mark, it's awesome. It's really well done. Incredibly well done.
But Joe and I were a little busy on Sunday night.
Oh, were you?
Oh, The Last of Us.
Last of Us.
Not anymore. Not anymore. It just ended.
Yeah,
it
just ended.
Not anymore. Thanks, Joe.
What is this you're talking about? About the Old West?
It's called The West. Kevin Costner's The West. It's a documentary series all about the West and, you know, different aspects of the Native Americans and the white settlers, and it takes you through all the way through, you know, the early 1800s, 1700s actually, all the way up to, you know, modern day.
That's cool.
Well, that's good that they went that far back, because I like to see the involvement on Revolutionary War.
Yeah, they were back in. They went all into the Revolutionary War in the first episode, and George Washington and the whole thing.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you know the book Abraham Lincoln Beyond the American Icon by Fred Reed? I think it is.
Are you asking Mark or me?
No, you, Dan.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar. I'm not. I have. You know, I must have 700 Lincoln books. That's one I've not heard of.
Fred Reed was a well-known Lincoln scholar, and he wrote 2 different books. So the reason I brought it up is because literally today I had a meeting with someone about a board game that they want to have me cover, and he was best friends with Fred Reed.
Really?
And Fred has passed away.
What a small world, man.
I just thought that it was so fascinating that we were talking to you today about this stuff.
Well, now I'm going to look that book up, Mark, since I don't have that one.
Okay. Yeah.
I will look it up.
He did that one, and he'd also covered like collectible stuff that people, you know, go to auction and get for
Oh, cool. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
But so yeah, his name is
Okay, guys. It's time to appease the animals in the cages who are probably throwing bricks and stones at us because we didn't ask one Star Wars or one Star Trek question. And unfortunately, Dan, we hate to do this to you, but we're going to have to.
Yep.
You know, we're going to have to ask a question that you've probably answered 1,000,000,001 times. And I'll start off. And Mark, you made up some questions as well. And
yeah,
if
and
you want to keep it, if you want to keep it in the same category, because my rules for this show for your appearance was let's try to be a little bit more exotic than the norm. But
Right.
screw that crap. We're going to just go head on and embarrass the living daylights out of you. How the hell did this happen?
Oh yeah.
God.
But you're talking about getting the cameo part?
Yes.
Yeah,
Is that what you're referring
I am.
to?
It's
Yeah.
a great.
Well,
It's a great story.
As you guys know, I was the president and publisher of the official Star Wars fan club, the Star Wars Insider, and I was invited to come over to the set of episode 1 to spend a week and interview the whole cast and crew and watch them film. And before I came over, I got this amazing offer to wanted to know if I'd like to have a cameo in the movie, and I said, of course. So I had to send them over all my my measurements, and I sent that over in advance. So I flew over, and the costume designer persons there all fit me for the costume and got me in this little green outfit. I'm a Nabooian citizen, and my good buddy Patrice, who ran the French Star Wars fan club behind me, he was a we like to call ourselves the Nabooian brothers. And at any rate, so I was in. They had me standing along the side on the parade scene as they all come down on their. All the Gungans come walking down, and Jar Jar's on top of his beast, his Cadu, and so they said, how would you like to have a real cameo? And I'm like, okay. And so George Lucas's first director came over and showed me where they wanted me to walk out to, and there was a little spot on the concrete there, so I knew where to stop. And so I got to not only just stand on the side and wave to everybody, but I actually got to come running out and grab the reins of Jar Jar's Cadu. And at the time, I had no idea what I was grabbing because there's obviously nothing there. And and George Lucas said, "Well, imagine, a chicken and a dinosaur, and that's what you're going to be grabbing the reins of." So I just imagined in my head what that might look like, and reached my hand up, and then I heard him say higher, and I had to grab my hand up higher, and so kind of tug on it like it was not wanting to go, and then went off, and that was my 15 seconds of fame basically. And all the Gungans were guys in white jumpsuits because everything was all created CG after the fact it was filmed, including all the people that were there for that parade scene. There might have been I don't know, maybe 100 people there, and they multiplied them and made it look like there were thousands of people there.
Yeah.
And then the buildings only went up so high, and they CG'd the rest of the buildings. They went up high, and made it look like they were enormous. And then they added confetti and balloons. And so when I saw the scene, I thought, man, it didn't look anything like that. Fortunately, the Cadu did look like what I imagined it to look like. It did look like a cross between a chicken and a dinosaur. So
that's right. Yeah, plus, you got that awesome picture with you and Kenny Baker there.
That was on the set. I was waiting to go do my thing, and Kenny came on to watch what we were doing, and he came and we were chatting, and R2D2 just happened to be there, and some guy says, hey, you guys get over there next to R2. I want to take a picture of you. And it was the set photographer, and so that picture was snapped, and that was a cool moment, and it was a fun thing. Never in my wildest dreams as a 14-year-old kid watching Star Wars did I think I'd get the opportunity to have to actually have a little cameo in a future Star Wars film. That was never even a thought in my mind that to happen. And my circuitous route through fan clubs and everything got me there. It's an interesting way to get to that point.
I've got a real quick, very small Star Wars question.
Go for it. No, go ahead.
Just real quick. I personally, I love everything that's Star Wars. I don't really get hung up on, some of the problems that some of the fans.
Okay, time's up.
What do you think of the newer Star Wars films and TV series?
I'm someone who I like everything they've produced for Star Wars, and that's not just a pat answer.
Yeah,
I like everything. I like some things better than I like others. I'm not, and I'll be honest, I'm not an enormous fan of the newer Star Wars as I am the older Star Wars. I'm an old Star Wars guy, Part of that is nostalgia, standing in line to see Star Wars or to see The Empire Strikes Back. And so, my Star Wars films are the originals. Now, like, for instance, my son Hayes, he's 33 now, but he grew up with the prequels. So for him, the prequels are his Star Wars movies. Right. And I'm sure that younger kids, it's the sequels that are there, that's their Star Wars movies. So each generation has their own Star Wars, but I like them all. And, this latest season of Andor is just mind-numbing.
Oh, so good.
Oh my God.
Don't get us started.
Yeah.
Don't get us started.
So,
I've been fired up about it.
Yeah. I don't remember, Dan, if I told you this, but, Shelby was pretty little when episode 1 came out. But so I took her to the theater, right? And so she stood up at the end and said, "Is that Uncle Dan?" People are looking around like
that is awesome.
Well, that was the first time I got to see myself as this giant person on the screen. When I'm just a little tiny guy in real life. So, but yeah, no, it was a dream. It was a dream came true. And then, they actually gave a name to the character, and I got a trading card, and I'm still waiting for my action figure. Damn it. Nobody's named me yet.
I was so disappointed that didn't happen, man.
It's like, how many different Luke Skywalkers and how many different, Darth Mauls do we need? Let's do a Dam's Den action figure, for crying out loud.
Right.
Yeah.
I keep saying, do a 2-pack. You get a Cadu and Dam's Den together.
That's right. Write your local Kenner representative.
Fans have done that, but I don't think Kenner has any intention of doing one. So I don't have a cool mask on. That's my problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to come back to this. We're trying to cover as much as we possibly can in such a short time, and we have a great question here from Rose. If you can go ahead and see that, guys. It is a great question. We're talking about the Star Trek franchise right now, and in terms of writer/director, or both, or either. Can you read that, Dan? Can you see it?
Yep, I see it.
Okay.
Are we talking both series and films? Because if we're talking about the whole caboodle, for me, it's Nick Meyer. I think Nick Meyer is one of the best Star Trek directors. Wrath of Khan is by far my favorite Star Trek movie.
Mine too.
Nothing even comes close to it. And I'm one of those few people who I still love Star Trek the motion picture, and then part of that is nostalgia, but I think it's the most big, open feeling Star Trek movie they've ever made. And the build up for that film was just incredible. And I know lots of people think it's slow and it's boring and such, but I'm still a fan of the motion picture. I really am. But hands down, Wrath of Khan's the best of all.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely.
And I think you're right about the motion picture in terms of the hype. We were so excited that Star Trek was going to be a motion picture. We didn't care how bad it could have been, put it that way. We were more excited about seeing our returning characters, the update on uniforms, the update on the Enterprise. My good friend who will be contacting me soon, I'm pretty sure, Dave McDonald, who was editor of Star
good old Dave.
Dave, yes.
Yeah, I still see that. I'm hoping Dave's watching right now. I still have that image of the new Enterprise on the cover.
Oh God, yes! I bought every Starlog back in the day.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
I think for any of us who lived through that motion picture time frame and were fans prior to it, that being at the theater, I went to the theater for the first showing.
Yep,
the very first showing. Went and watched it, and then came back that night and did a second showing. But that first one, sitting there as the lights go down, and I'm just nervous as hell, and it goes dark, and then all of a sudden that boom, the logo comes up, and the crowd just cheers, And I
Yep.
was like, man, I had goosebumps up my back.
Oh,
And
big time.
I'll never forget the experience of seeing that movie for the first time. And
Yeah.
then every time every character came on screen, the whole crowd would erupt and
Oh yeah.
cheer. And,
Yeah.
you know, it
Do you
was
remember
weird
too, like,
because, you know,
especially with the motion picture? Do you remember that? And a lot of movies from that time period, you would go and they'd be handing out these like full color, amazing like details on the movie brochure kind of.
oh yeah, I had several of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved that as a kid. I couldn't wait to get those.
I'll never forget, one of my favorite things was 2 weeks prior to it opening, and I was collecting everything I could find for the movie. In my newspaper on the Sunday newspaper, in the entertainment section, there was a full-page, full-color ad of that famous movie poster with the faces of Kirk, Spock, and Ilea, you know,
Yes,
and
yeah.
it said, "You are now 2 weeks away from star date,
Yes.
you know, 07, whatever, you know,
I remember
012, 07, 79 or whatever." And I remember I went like, ah, you know.
Yeah, it was incredible to see. These are two good friends that I think you and I had a lot of time with.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know you did. I know, Mark, you were dear friends with both of them as well. And DeForest Kelly, I think it's hard for me to say because I love every one of them, but man, DeForest Kelly, it's hard to beat him. He was one of the best people I think I ever met.
Yep.
Not only in life, but in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, D was the very first Star Trek actor that Dan introduced me to. And
Really?
I think I was 20 at the time. And
well, I had lunch with Dee and Carolyn at their house. Their yellow,
Oh yeah,
yellow
all
house.
their roses there, and
they kept that house so, and it's so interesting how exposed it is. It's not in the gated community or anything like that.
No.
Had great lunch with them. Had I think I visited the set. Next Generation set is what I was visiting that time when I went out to see them. And it's just fantastic people. Dee, I still keep in touch with Dee's wife, Wendy. We talk all the time.
Oh, you mean Jimmy's wife?
Jimmy's wife, yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy's wife, Wendy. Yeah,
Wendy, yeah. And being part of the space company that I'm associated with, we did place Jimmy's ashes into space. Actually, he's on a distant trip right now.
Yeah, so appropriate. So
appropriate. A bunch of other celebrities on board then. So great people, great times back during those days, great conventions when conventions weren't being held in convention centers. They were actually
in hotels. And you didn't have actors charging you, what is it? You know, how many hundreds of dollars to get their autograph and then another hundreds of dollars to get a picture with them. And, you know, I mean, it was a much more affordable thing for fans to do.
It was free. You just stood in line.
Like
all the
$25.
all the conventions Dan and I worked, it was just a line. You just got in the line. You know, so.
It was a much better, I mean, it was a much simpler, friendlier time to be a fan, quite frankly.
My favorite thing about D was he was the only one that always remembered my name.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The very first time, the first time I met him, Dan was like, "Oh, and this is my photographer." And Dee was like, "Oh, so you must be Mark." And I was like, "What?"
You took that. I think you took that picture of me and Dee standing there. We went to his room when I did his interview, Mark, and you took that picture of me and Dee together that I used in the actual magazine.
Yeah.
But it's I'll never forget Dee and his wife Carolyn.
Never
so
forget Dee,
such wonderful people.
Lady.
Yep.
Yeah. Every time Dee would,
I miss them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every time I saw him, he always remembered me. It was amazing.
Yeah, every time Dee was on stage, I'd sit in the audience in the back with Carolyn.
Yes.
Nice.
Wow.
Great times. Great times, man.
Yep.
So look, we covered Star Trek, not completely. We covered Star Wars, not completely, but there were other fan clubs that you were associated with as well. So why don't we move on to Indiana Jones?
Oh, Indiana Jones. Always a favorite of mine. Well, you know, that all was part of the Lucasfilm fan club. When we started the club, it was since Star Wars had kind of ended at that point, and to be honest, nobody at Lucasfilm even knew if George was going to get back to doing new Star Wars movies. He had mentioned he was interested, but you know, nobody was sure that there actually would be anything. And so, you know, the first thing up on my list of things to cover for the fan club, first thing was Willow. And so
Yes.
I flew over to the set and spent a week on the set of Willow, and covering everything, interviewing everybody. And then after that, the next thing up was Indiana Jones. So went back to the same studio over in England and spent a week and a half on the Last Crusade set and interviewed everybody on the set. And, two of my idols and my heroes, Harrison Ford and Steven Spielberg, couldn't have been nicer people to sit there and interview. And, you always worry that people that you are such fans of, they'll be jerks to you. It couldn't be.
they'll be jerks. Yeah.
Not even close. I mean, they were so. Spielberg still stands out as my favorite person I've ever interviewed, and he's just sat there. I'm still amazed because he's such a genius. We were filming. Remember the scene in The Last Crusade when the little guy's sitting there in the library and he's stamping the things, and Harrison Ford and Allison Doody are got that metal thing or something. They're smacking the floor where the X is to find out that there's a hole down there to go down under. And so when he does that, and then the little librarian or something does the thing, and here's this bam, and he looks at this like, what, Anyway, that was the scene they were filming. And so Spielberg would have them set up the scene, and we were just off stage, and there were two directors' chairs there, and he would say, just a minute. He'd go and he'd film the scene and say, okay, set up for the next shot or whatever. He'd come back and we'd start our interview all over again. We must have done that 5 times. And he was able to just stop, go direct, come back. Now, where were we? And we'd start the interview over again. And we probably spent 2 hours doing that on the set of The Last Crusade. And so that was a favorite memory of mine. But yeah, Indiana Jones is always, and Amy says Willow is still an epic movie. It sure as heck is. Warwick Davis is such a wonderful, huge, amazing person.
He's such a nice guy.
I love Willow. Willow was the first time I remember seeing like a fantasy movie that I thought was like at the same like level production wise as like Star Wars. Because up before that, every fantasy movie you saw was campy or shoestring budget. I mean, that was the first one I really remembered going, wow, this is cool. So when PJ decided he was doing Lord of the Rings, I was like, hey, if he does it anything like what Willow was, we're in good shape.
Amen, brother. Amen. I hear you.
Sure.
I know what you mean. Yeah, it was those were grand times back in those days because it was so fun to cover all those things, and there wasn't an internet back then.
Right.
So, a lot of the information that fans would get would be through our fan magazines.
Yep.
If you subscribe to it, there are always updates in Star Trek with like either Rick Berman or Gene Roddenberry, and then Star Wars updates with Rick McCallum, or even if we did a few with George Lucas. So, but there was no internet and no breaking information that you could read online. So, you'd either have to watch for maybe something in People magazine or a newspaper article, or just keep your eyes on the media press or whatever to find out what was new and what was coming down the line or what was happening right at that moment.
Dan, were you involved with Bantha Tracks at all?
I was not involved. Bantha Tracks was before me. Okay. And it's funny because as soon as I saw Star Wars, I joined the official Star Wars fan club, and I think I probably was one of the first 15 people to join the fan club. And I had every issue of Bantha Tracks.
Yeah, my dad signed us up. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah. And so, Bantha Tracks was before me. That was the original newsletter, and then boom, I came on in '87.
Nice.
Okay, Dan, I'm about to put you on the spot.
Okay.
My buddy, my brother, my loved one, please forgive me.
As long as that $20 is in the mail, I'll do so.
Oh, I only sent 15.
Oh, no.
All right. Anyway, my buddy, you are as much a part of fandom, the initiation of fandom, which I will put the Star Trek first. You are as much an important figure in fandom as all the movies that we've ever seen and ever watched. For one individual to have some level of gumption to connect himself with all of these iconic movies, iconic directors, iconic studios. I want you to tell us, what is it about you to have accomplished so much that the rest of us watching you now and in this studio right now probably couldn't come close to doing? What is it about you that people took to?
Well, that's awfully kind of you to say that, Mark. And it's funny because, okay, no. Well, that's all right too. I'll believe the lie. No, what's funny is because a lot of the young people today that have grown up on, say, the Star Wars animated shows and such, I mean, they don't even know who I am. A lot of them, I'll go to a convention and they don't have any idea who I am because they came along after the fan club ended. And so I don't mean anything to those people. It's only the old people like us that remember back to the days when all of this was happening that have the feelings that you might have just expressed. I was so passionate about all these projects that, especially Star Trek, that was such a passion project for me. And then Star Wars was absolutely the very same thing. And I don't know, I think in a way, I just never thought the word no just didn't even cross my mind. I just thought, well, I could do that. Yep. I could get a hold of them and they would let me do that. Yeah. And I just flew out and I'll be honest with you, being a little person, I think that gave them a sense of, they were willing to let me come in the office and talk with them because they were maybe more amiable to sit down with me and talk with me because, I was a little guy and that might have had some part of it all, but I had, you can have the door open for you, but once the door is open and you go through, you got to do some good work for them. And so, we had quality people working for me and it's not a one person thing. And people like Mark and such that, you have, I had the good luck of, and the blessings of having good people that worked around me that were able to help me make these fan clubs come to life and the magazines be beautiful and successful and the people in the licensing divisions of both Paramount and Lucasfilm that I developed friendships with, who even to this day I'm still good friends with. And so and then and then after that, I had the good fortune of going to work with Ashley Eckstein to do her Universe fashion line. And I worked with her for almost 10 years until she sold the business to Hot Topic. So I've worked with a lot of good people over the years. And while I can certainly be proud of what I've done, it's because other people I brought along with me that allowed me to be able to do what I did.
Yeah, I have to agree with Rose here.
I agree, Rose. I agree with Rose.
I think I had as many Lucasfilm, or rather Star Trek, Star Wars Fan Club, Lucasfilm Fan Club magazines. They were all next to my Starlog magazines. I mean, I think back during that time, I don't know about you, Joe, or you, Mark, but I think we all purchased Starlog, Lucasfilm, Star Trek, Star Wars magazine, and Cinefantastique.
Yes. Yep. I did the same.
Remember those magazines?
Kerry O'Quinn of Starlog, he was a real inspiration to me, and I would correspond with him. And he would write me these very inspiring letters. And in fact, in one issue of Starlog, his opening kind of page, he would write an opening page. He wrote a very, very wonderful complimentary story on me and the Star Trek fan club and such. And he was a real inspiration for me. Starlog magazine was my go-to mag back in the day, as I'm sure it was for many.
Yeah. And I also loved Dragon magazine and Wizard.
Dragon as well.
And Wizard. Yep, Wizard. I remember that too.
And Mark Lee, I think his answer to your question was he's likable and lucky.
Yeah. Amen. The two L's. Likable and lucky. You got it.
If anyone
needs right there. Joe hit it right on the nose.
Hey, so look, Jerome, I'm really curious about the answer to this question because this is very surprising to me, and Jerome brought it up, and I'm going to post it right now for you to take a look at.
I'm the guy at the end of Phantom Menace. That's me. I'm the guy.
Yes.
I'm the little guy in the green suit that comes running out and grabs Jar Jar's Cadu.
Yeah, Jerome came in late. We were basically
There I am. That's me right there.
Yep.
You didn't see these
with
yet.
the original R2D2 Kenny Baker.
Yeah, waiting for your action figure to come out.
Whatever. I'll probably be dead by the time it comes out, but hey, better late than never.
I love your answer to all that, because I feel like you opened so many doors for me, and my whole approach to things is like what you said. Like for Eddie and for Peter and all those folks and things I've done, I just assumed that it would work.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
maybe it was a bit of a naive kind of an attitude about it, but it's kind of like, I can do that. I mean, when they came to me and asked me about doing the very first Star Wars celebration, I'd never done a convention in my life.
Right.
And they were talking about how big it was going to be and how huge. And I remember just saying to myself, well, I could do that. Yeah, I can do that. And I might have even lied to him, said, well, I could do that. Yeah, I have that. I can do that. And I just thought, well, I'll figure out a way to do it. Even if I don't know right now, I'll figure out a way to do it.
Yep.
I really wish they bring Celebration back to the States.
I
think the next one is coming back to LA.
It'll be
the last one was in Japan,
right?
And next one I think is in San Francisco.
2026. No, 2026 in Los Angeles.
LA. It's gonna be in LA. For those of you guys that don't know, if you're just catching up with us, Dan, with all of his accolades that he has going on and rightly achieved, he also achieved the first official Star Trek. Oh, listen to me. Oh boy, the freaking stormtroopers are coming after me.
As my wife says, there's no difference between them.
There's no difference. Your wife, are you still married to her?
Oh yeah, I am.
Oh my God.
Best thing that ever happened to me.
My peanut butter. Stan, listen to me. Dan organized the first celebration, the first Star Wars convention, which was it Aurora?
Denver. It was in Denver, Colorado, here in 1999.
At the Air and Flight Museum.
Yeah, what was it? The Air and Space Museum.
That's what.
Here in Denver, Colorado, and that was a tumultuous time, and we were able to get it off the ground, and irregardless of the weather that hit us on that weekend and such, but it's affectionately known as the Star Wars. What is it called, Mark? Star Wars Woodstock. Star Wars Woodstock is what it's called. And the thing survived the rain and the mud of Star Wars Woodstock. Well, that was Celebration 1.
People talk about the weather that happened, but I don't think they properly understand that it wasn't just heavy rain. It was literally sheets of rain.
It was biblical kind of rain.
It was. And
Noah's Ark kind of rain.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like a little bit muddy. No, you were like sinking into the mud to get to the different tents.
It was the worst. It was the worst rain in Denver, Colorado in 100 years, and it hit on the very weekend that we decided to hold the Star Wars celebration.
I remember Warwick said to me, he goes, "Is it like this all the time here?"
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look at it
funny because it's always blue sky and sunny for the most part. Yeah. So that was really an unusual thing to happen. And it's like, well, there must have been a reason for it to happen that weekend.
It was a baptism of the
Amen.
celebration.
Amen. That's exactly what it was, Mark. I've never heard anyone put it that way, but you're right.
And a little tidbit for that.
TM.
Trademark, Mark B. Lee.
Yeah, put TM behind it. Well, look, let me look for. We've had you for a good while here. We appreciate you being here, Dan. I am looking at the comments that are coming in. A lot of them are thank you comments. I'm looking for questions. What does this say?
Hey, Dan, what was the last celebration you were involved in?
Well, the last one was the first one. I sold the business after that and sold the company, but I've always been involved with them with Lucasfilm. I'd say the one I was most actively involved with was the one that was held in Chicago about 6 years ago. And it was the 20th anniversary of Phantom Menace and the 20th anniversary of Celebration 1. So Anthony Daniels and I did a big panel up on stage, and we talked about the first convention, and I did a lot of panels, and I worked with Lucasfilm on a bunch of stuff, footage wise and everything. So that was the last one that I actually had my fingers involved in.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
One of the cool things about Celebration is that we had a full-size real X-wing at the show that actually was Dan's for a while.
Yeah, for a while, very short period
Very
of time.
short time. It was
And
actually
it's still there now to this day.
It's
If
still
you go to the Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum here in Denver, you'll find the life-size X-wing fighter there, and you'll now notice that it has autographs of all the different Star Wars actors who have been to the museum, including Harrison Ford, and they've all signed the side of the X-wing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
When Dan owned it, I got to sit in it. It was awesome.
Well, Steve Sansweet, who then worked in fan relations at Lucasfilm, he told me they were sending that out for the convention. I'm like, okay, great. And he says, well, he says, you know, I think we can just give that to you. And I'm like, okay. And then I remember thinking, where the hell am I going to put a life-size X-wing fighter? Yeah. So Steve said, well, I think we have to sell it to you. So we'll sell it to you for $1. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good to me. I figured it's worth more than $1, that's for sure. Anyway,
I'll buy that for $1.
The Lucasfilm lawyers and everything's, oh, no, we can't sell that. It's not, we can't do that. We can't sell it and such. And so that didn't happen, but you know what? They agreed to let me keep it at the museum on permanent display so that it would always be a reminder of where the first Celebration was held. And it would always be a reminder about Star Wars and how it's affected air travel. And, you know, there's fighter pilot jets and NASA spaceships and things. And right next to them is a Star Wars X-Wing fighter.
Yep. It's so cool.
Appropriate. Yeah. Let me ask you real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Let me ask you real quick before we let you go, because we've had you long enough.
Sure.
We're going back to Star Trek again here, and I remember you and I have our own personal stories about Gene Roddenberry, but I like to hear yours and see if there's something that I haven't heard yet coming from you.
Gene was always one of my favorite people. Always treated me with respect. Always sent me letters on my newsletters and tell me what a great job. First, every time I would go out to interview Gene in his office at Paramount, as you know, Mark, he's this big, huge bear of a man, and he'd give me this bear hug, big old bear hug, and we'd go into his office and sit down there, and I could ask him anything I wanted. Any question was on the table. No, there wasn't anything I couldn't ask him. And I remember him telling me a story, because I had told him how much I liked how the episode with Plato's stepchildren and Michael Dunn. And he said to me, he says, he said, when I first came up with the idea for Spock, I thought of him being a little person, because he said, I wanted to make him really, really different. And he said, and I said, well, why did you not go with that idea? And he said, well, we couldn't find at the time, we couldn't find a good enough actor we thought that could play it. And so he said, then we changed the whole concept of him and made him average height and gave him the pointed ears and such. And I remember at the time that he told me that, I remember thinking, I've never heard that before. I've never heard him ever say that his original idea for Spock was to be a little person. And even to this day, I still know that there's a lot of people out there that knew that. But it was in my interview with him back in the day.
Yep.
I want your autograph anyway, but if you had gotten that part, my God, I could have sold your signature for a fortune.
I was just a little kid then, so they couldn't have cast me in that part then. I would have been Spock at 4 years old or whatever. I'm envious of you, Mark. You're the one who got to hang with the astronaut at Jimmy Doohan's last con.
Neil Armstrong.
Oh my! Neil Armstrong. Talk about a legend.
Yeah, that's.
He's he's the first person to ever walk on another celestial body other than the Earth, and he'll always hold that moniker because nobody else was able to do that before him.
Yeah. And I'm looking at a picture of he and I on my wall right now, and as you brought that up. It was Nichelle that talked. Neil is so shy. He was so shy.
Oh, I know.
Pretty much recluse, very shy, and it was Nichelle Nichols who got him to come to Jimmy Doohan's last convention.
I remember you telling me that story, and I thought, what an amazing thing, because you talk about a legend and a hero, you know. I mean, you got the Star Trek actors, and they're actors that have played roles. This guy actually went into outer space, took the risk of his life being taken. And, you know, when you think about the technology that was on that Apollo rocket, which now today we have more technology on our cell phones than that rocket had, than that capsule
it's
had.
amazing.
And, you know, I mean, the fact of the matter is they might think, well, we can get there, but we might not get home. And so the moon might be our grave. And it's, you know, I mean, I just think about the bravery of those guys and what they went through. And the fact that he'll always hold that moniker of the first human being to ever walk on another celestial body other than the earth. And it's true. Just, no other human being can ever take credit of that unless a UFO picked up somebody way back in the Middle East and took somebody to their planet. We don't know about it. You know?
And that's involuntary. That's involuntary.
That's right. That's involuntary. That's right.
I remember reading somewhere that the original Game Boy was. Oh, sorry. I remember reading somewhere that the original Game Boy was 10 times more powerful than the computers that they had on the ship. You know,
doesn't that blow your mind?
Yeah.
I mean, think about the risk these guys took. How they went up there to go to the moon, and the fact is, the matter is, you know, like I said, my thought is that I might have thought, well, okay, they can maybe get there, but you know, I'm screwed. I'm not coming back. So you know.
Yeah.
Hey, so Dan, I've always wondered, you know, do you have that moment that you were maybe alone at your desk sitting there and you realized, one, how did I get here? And two, have you really thought about how you've built something that will outlive you?
Oh, you know, I mean, I did. It was really cool to know. It was really cool to walk into, you know, grocery stores and bookstores, and there's the Star Trek and Star Wars magazines that I
was awesome
right there, or up at the cash register, and you know, we'd get the letters, just hundreds of letters a week from fans talking about, you know, how much they love Star Trek or Star Wars, and you know, I'd send magazines to all of the actors because I wanted to make sure they were all familiar with it and such. But like I said, you know, impact is fleeting, because today the younger generations, they don't even know who I am, and they might have heard about the Star Wars Insider because it's still being published by Titan, who I sold it to back in the day. But the Star Trek Communicator is no longer being published. The fan clubs are no longer, and you know, they've grown up in a world where there was no Dan Madsen's fan clubs or magazines. So you know, I sometimes, if I meet a Star Wars fan who's, you know, 20, and somebody that knows me and says, "Oh, this is Dan Madsen," oh yeah, okay, well, nice to meet you. You know, it's like, don't worry about it. You don't have to know who I am. There's no worries about that. So yeah,
I got a question.
It's the way it is.
Yeah, I got another question here, real quick. And Howard, who is he talking about?
Howard. How old was
Howard? Who? Jerome, you know better than that. Howard?
Quick aside while you're thinking about that. You know, it kind of makes me think, and like, I'm not the one to do this. So I'm putting this energy out into the universe. Maybe somebody's inspired. Maybe somebody isn't watching live. Maybe they watch this on a rerun or whatever. Rerun, my God. Sorry. I'm the youngest guy in the group, but I still talk this way. But I feel like we have lost. Look, I love the internet, but I also, there's parts of it that I also dislike, you know.
Yeah, me too.
And that's one of the things that, like, we've gained certain things, but we've also lost a lot of things. I feel like there should be a documentary or a documentary series about like the unsung heroes of fandoms, you know. And I mean, you know, you'd certainly be one of those people, Dan, but like not just to highlight you. I mean, I'm not trying to give you a big ego,
but everyone who had a part in all that.
Yeah, and also talk about the fandoms themselves and how it's transitioned, and with a real focus on like the history of it and like where it came from, a little bit towards the end about like where it is, but kind of give some people some perspective about like how hard it was to get information and to be a fan back then. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, you didn't just pull out your phone and find out who was cast in the new Star Wars movie. It was
Right.
that didn't happen back then.
Magazine.
Yeah.
It was a magazine.
No
Internet.
Every 2 months, and then the magazine would come, and then we would always get the latest information from Lucasfilm and PR, and I'd have to fight to say, come on, just let us put this in there. By the time we print it, it'll already be, Time Magazine might have a note on it. So
yeah.
Anyway,
that was back in the day when we were paying for a movie ticket for a movie we didn't want to see, but we heard a trailer for a movie we did want to see. Was playing.
That's right. That's very true.
And then we get up and leave. That's it.
That's very true. That's exactly absolutely right. Yeah.
These magazines meant so much to us, thanks to you. And,
well, it was a passion of mine and a joy. And the funny thing is that when I started the Star Trek fan club, it was partially because I had joined the official Star Wars fan club with what Joe had mentioned, Bantha Tracks. And I remember I kept thinking, I knew there was these local Star Trek clubs all over the country, but I thought, why isn't there an official Star Trek fan club? Why isn't there somebody doing like what Star Wars with Bantha Tracks does, And so part of my inspiration to start the Star Trek fan club was to do something that was kind of, copying what Star Wars did. And then, as everything comes full circle, I managed to do that. And then boom, here I get Star Wars on top of that. So it's kind of, kind of an interesting.
Well, holy crap, Dan, don't tell the Klingons that.
That's so cool. I think one of the things Bantha Tracks kind of helped cement me as a geek, because I'll tell you why. There's a specific reason why. I remember my dad signed us up for it. I think maybe I saw it on the back of maybe one of my Star Wars figures or something like that.
Yep.
And then told my dad. My dad's like, "Oh, that sounds really cool." Because my dad, he won't admit it, but my dad's kind of an old school sci-fi nerd.
Sure.
And he got me. Well, it was his, but I'm the one that wore it. Like the official Indiana Jones fedora. The $200 one back in
the expensive one. Yeah.
So, but I remember reading in Bantha Tracks, and it blew my 9-year-old, 10-year-old little mind. It was right after. Okay, so this was right after Return of the Jedi, so it'd be 83. So I would have been 8. Okay, so I remember reading. They were interviewing Lucas. It was one of the few times in Bantha Tracks they were you actually saw print from Lucas directly. And they asked him what his plans were. And he said, I envision this as a 9-episode saga. Mm-hmm. This is the first 3, the next 3 is going to be about how Anakin became Vader. And then the following 3 would be about what happens afterwards. And
that blew your mind, didn't it?
Yeah. And I was sitting there going, I was like, wait a minute. There's going to be 6 more movies.
I know.
Oh my God. And then, the fact that it took almost 20 years for it to happen. But yeah.
Keep talking. He's
his
internet connection is catching up. Keep going.
Yeah, but that captured my imagination.
Yeah.
And
I
really
remember reading that as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I've referred to that article to people for years, especially kids that were, younger than me, and I used that as a defense because remember the prequels weren't, fully beloved at first, and I defended them staunchly because I was like, man, this is what Lucas said it was going to be. He said it was basically going to be like a political drama, dude.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, that must be a sign. Mark, can you, I said that must be a sign. Mark, can you do me a favor and message him real quick? His internet. You got storms out there, Mark?
We did earlier, but not now.
Okay. Yeah, it's internet connection just didn't notice how I didn't crap out since I'm on the new fiber optic system here,
Same.
By the way, the question that Jerome asked, he was talking about Clint Howard, Ron Howard's little brother.
Right.
Who was the alien in, I don't know the name of that episode, Metamorphosis? I don't think so.
No. It was the Corbinite Maneuver.
Oh, there you go. The Corbinite Maneuver. Yeah. So if we get him back, you just text him?
I did.
Okay.
I'll text his phone as well.
Yeah, he did the right thing. Pop off and pop back on.
Yep.
He should be able to get right back on, so we can say at least goodbye to him. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
Guys, those that are joining us right now, we had our good friend Dan Madsen. You know, and oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. I'm not wearing my eyes today. Dan, who we know, started all these fan clubs. Good, he did pop in. I just heard him.
Cool.
Created all these wonderful fan clubs. What are you on now, Dan? Are you on your cell phone?
I'm on my cell phone, my computer, my laptop, the battery.
Oh,
I plugged it in, so now I'm on my cell phone.
I see the dog behind you. What's the dog's name?
Dog
Other
behind.
way.
Other way? Oh, that way?
No, other way.
other way.
No.
Oh, that right there. Oh, that's Baguette. That's my
Baguette?
Baguette. That's my friend. We have a little.
Didn't want to name it Alita, huh?
Yeah. No. Yeah. By the way, Mark's coloring book. Everybody, you need to get it. That is awesome. I bought
Thank you
4
for
of them.
mentioning that.
I bought 4 of them and sent them to our nieces and nephews, and they're absolutely loving them.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
And I'm loving the
edible.
edible coloring book is just
Oh yeah. So I
mind-numbing.
didn't tell you guys about this. I have a good friend who has a channel.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Mark, you need to do a scratch and sniff.
Depends on what
you need
part
to
of
do a
the
scratch.
body you're scratching.
That would be really cool.
Do a
But
scratch and sniff.
I
For those that don't know, Mark Street, our co-host here, is definitely in deadly. I don't even know the word, but he's very much in love with his dog.
Yes.
And because of that, he's produced some videos about he and his dog on their walking ventures and so on, which evolved into a coloring book based on the dog named Alita. And it's such a cool book. And you guys go to Mark's Facebook page. I know it's on. Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. Yep.
It is.
Adventures
Right.
with Alita.
That's where I ordered.
Adventure.
That's where I ordered all our copies. Was on Amazon.
That was freaking incredible. Hey, Dan, the question that my friend Jerome was asking when he said Howard who, we were talking about Clint Howard on the Corbinite maneuver. How old was he when he filmed that role?
Oh, he was just a little kid. I think he was like 6, maybe 5 or 6.
5, yeah.
Yeah, he was just a very little kid, at the time.
You know where I saw him in a lot of episodes?
In episodes of, wasn't he on a Gentle Ben or?
No, yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
The kid in Gentle Ben. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
But even before that, he was in a lot of Andy Griffin episodes.
Oh,
He
yeah.
always walked around in a cowboy outfit
That's right.
and a jelly sandwich or something.
Jelly sandwich. Yes.
He was such a cute little kid, and you'd see him pop up as guest star on a lot of different shows. But you're right, he was on the Andy Griffith show.
Yeah. Hey, dude, look, you've been incredible. We've taken up a lot of your time. Anytime you want to return and tell us more stories, because we can sit here for hours just listening to you.
I got a lot of stories to tell, so you just let me know, and I'll come back.
We didn't even get to our Back to the Future stories, though.
No, I know. Well, that's for next time.
That's for next time.
Oh God, yes. We have to. I'm looking at. Well, everybody wants to thank you. I'm looking at the screen. I got all you guys on the 86-inch TV right now, but since my eyes went through a little bit of a downfall lately, I gotta get up close on the TV a bit. Even an 86-inch screen. I'm trying to pull up all the questions. A lot of people are saying thank yous and great show and yada 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 as I scroll back up again for a few. But look, thank you so much for accepting Mark's invitation. We've been friends for decades, the three of us, and now you gained Joe as a friend. But he's a young buck. He's still got a way to go.
Hopefully, we've got decades of friendship now with you, Joe.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to it. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that I'm the youngest person here, and I hit 50 a few months ago.
You hear that, Mark? You know what that means, Mark? Yeah. We'll be dead. Yeah. They'll still be friends.
It's so true.
We'll be dead.
I'll carry the torch.
I have to just say, I don't think I would be where I am today without Dan. So,
awfully kind.
It seems so. Yes, and
he launched me into my
wait a minute.
what?
How did I meet you, Mark
Through
Street?
Dan. Yep, because of Dan. Yes.
I feel like Kevin Bacon.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, no.
So yeah.
It's amazing.
No.
I've always said it's all in who you know, right?
It is.
That's
Dan's the
All
Kevin
in who you
Bacon.
know.
Dan's the
It
Kevin Bacon. You're the first degree.
Yeah, you are. And you're the reason.
See, I told you I was old.
I mean,
Yeah,
you're
told
the
you I was
reason
old.
that I've always had this kind of oddball Hollywood adjacency thing happening, from a guy in Colorado. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
and
it
Yeah,
is.
just
You've
to think
earned your
about
way.
our whole convention journey where like with Starfest and how I started out as a fan and then working it with you, and then I was a guest at the end of the convention. It was just things like that. It's just so surreal to me still that
it's really interesting. I've been to a Starfest and didn't know you guys. I remember walking from that hotel. There was an open field and it was full of prairie dogs.
Oh yeah,
yes.
that's
They were
right.
all popping up out of their holes. I'm like, what the hell is that?
Wow.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
right.
like
That's exactly right.
an empty field next to the hotel and it was full of prairie dogs.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh my
that was
God.
way back when. Way back when.
That was way back when. Good gracious. I was actually in Aurora.
Yeah.
Real quick. Thank you for reminding
Yeah.
us. So while you guys are here, we ought to round. Ooh, Dan, I'd like to extend an invitation to you to be a co-host. You don't have to fake agreeing to me now, but for Classic Television Smackdown, you give us a list of 10 classic television shows that you enjoyed. Either you or us will find the clips for you, and you do your own little script. You talk about each one, what you like about each one. I mean, it could be from It's About Time. Boy, I'm dating myself. To All in the Family. Anything that you may like. And let Mark know when you're free to do it so we can put you on the schedule. But we would love to have you and it's always on a Friday night at 8 o'clock, which would be what? 6 o'clock, Mark?
Yeah, it's early here. So.
Yeah, 6 here.
And just talk about old classic televisions that you like if you're willing to do that.
Yep.
It sounds fun. Yeah, I mean, I love to talk about old TV because that's what I grew up in, and there's the nostalgia all around that. So, yeah, I just got to find the time when I can do it, but it sounds fun.
That's what we're looking for. That's when you have the time to do it. We're not forcing you at all. So, we would love to have you as a guest co-host and talk about. I like to know your input on some of the old classic shows. We have two other co-hosts.
A lot of them weren't sci-fi. A lot of them were like the Andy Griffith Show, for instance.
Yeah.
We've done an episode on nothing but sci-fi. We've done a single show such as Outer Limits, episodes from Outer Limits and things of that nature. And it's always been a very popular, good show. So we love to have you as a co-host on that. But look, you ought to run. You have been incredible. Our team is going to hang out here for a while. Folks that are still watching us, hang on for a sec. We have a couple of things we want to talk to you about before you guys go. Good. Yeah, just because Dan's leaving doesn't mean you have to leave. But
okay, head it out. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks.
Adios.
Dan, thank you so much, brother. Be talking to you soon. That was great. All right, so real quick before we close out, boy, look, guys, we're almost up to 2 hours on this, huh?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Boy. All right, for those of you guys, real quick. So coming up this Friday, we have. Make sure I have all this stuff. We have. Jerome is bringing us with We Interrupt This Broadcast.
Oh, nice.
You can imagine what that show is going to be about. So that's Friday at 8 o'clock, okay, Eastern time on Classic Television Smackdown. We'll be doing that. Then the next day on Saturday morning, Amy, our guest co-host for Saturday Morning Cartoons, will be doing cartoon crossovers. And I have seen her list, and I am excited. I'm really looking forward to this episode of Saturday Morning Cartoons. Cartoon crossovers. Just think about it for a minute. It's pretty much self-explanatory. That's going to be pretty cool. So we were really happy. You guys were great. We had Dan MADSEN on with us, and we're working on a few others. Dave McDonald, I'm waiting for him to get back to me.
Cool.
For a show, so we can talk about Starlog. And
I haven't seen Dave in forever.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Long time.
That's how we were getting our movie trailers at conventions. It was through Dave.
It was through Dave.
You know.
Yep.
It was incredible. And then I'm still working on Steve Jeppy. And Steve Jeppy, he grew up. He and I. He was an adult. I was still a 12-year-old kid going to his comic shop. He used to call me Mike Grell because I loved the artwork of Mike Grell back then. But he is the president, or was, I think it was just sold, president of Diamond Comic Distributors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Co-owner of the Baltimore Orioles as well. And he and I have been friends for decades, but, I don't see him as much since he still lives in Baltimore and I still live here. Hoping to get him on so he can talk about how he got into that industry. But that's where I started my comic book career, was from his shop.
That's awesome.
In the basement of some house. It was a separate entrance, and that's how I started my comic career. So we got a busy week coming up, a busy weekend coming up. You guys hung around. I'm looking at the numbers of people that are watching us right now. We really appreciate it. Not many of you guys commented that I wanted to, but you still had, I guess you were in awe because it was Dan MADSEN.
So here's something you don't know, Mark, probably.
Please.
Is that Dan is now in the board game world as well.
Chump. What did you offer him? He's
been working with a company called Rollacrit, and he's been going to Gen Con and conventions, and so we hang out there. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. Wow. I don't know what you guys are playing, but good for you.
Yep.
Joe, any last thoughts about, look, we do this show every month. Okay, so don't expect us next week.
Yeah, no.
So in 30 days, we'll come up with a new show. Joe, go ahead, buddy.
I was going to say earlier that Street should use his connections in the board game world. Surely somebody can get a miniature done of Dan.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Get it with the the mount, I forgot the name of the alien, but basically the Gungans mounts, that'd be cool.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
that's a great idea, Mark.
And then
I know so many 3D sculptors as well. So
and then all you got to do is just send it off to get it 3D printed. So,
yep.
Somebody can do it right there in their house. Not much, man. That was a great episode. Learned a lot about him. I was aware of him, but I didn't know all of his impact. Really cool to hear about his impact on both you guys, and the relationship with both you guys. Let's see. We're about to, we're just a little bit away from summer movie season. I loved Andor, loved Last of Us. And yeah, man.
We didn't have time to do our bullpen.
Right.
Tonight, but
we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Yeah, we still have stuff to talk about. We've seen the last episode of Last of Us, and Andor I wanted to get into. We'll still have a show before Emmy season anyway. Movie stuff. Let's see. I saw Mission Impossible, and of course, I watched finally Brave New World, Captain America, here at home.
What did you think?
I gave it a number. I think. What did I give it?
I didn't see your number.
I thought it was like 7.25 or something.
You got it on the nose. That's exactly right, Joe. Good memory, man. Because that's exactly what I gave it. 7.25. I got one friend who gave it a 10. I'm like,
wow,
really? Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed it for the fun factor, but I would give it a 6. So
6, yeah.
I give it a 7 because of Anthony Mackie.
Oh, he's awesome.
And only because of Anthony Mackie.
Yeah.
Based off the plot. Based off the plot, I would give it a 5.
Yeah.
Look, I like his sidekick, Falcon.
Yeah.
And notice, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but did you notice the sidekick was wearing green?
Yes.
He does in the comics too.
He does in the comics. Yep.
Yeah, he was
the
wearing
comics.
green, and I thought that was impressive.
Yep.
Other than that, we got, like you said, the summer movies coming out. Mission Impossible, I gave a 7.75 only because not for the length, but it did keep my attention.
Yeah, yeah. You don't notice how long it is. I mean, you're just
you really don't.
You're on the ride the whole time.
Yeah. Basically, it was 3 hours short of, and you're right. You're on a ride the entire time, and
it's
for them to claim, to name it Final Reckoning and to push the fact that it may be, it's the last one. At least you assume that what they were trying for. Oh, come on,
Well, who was it? Let's see here.
He's too old, man. He can't keep doing those. His next movie's a drama, if that tells you anything.
So
really?
He's going back to dramas.
Yeah, I saw an interview clip where he wants it to continue, but I believe it was Glenn Powell. He wants to be the lead now. He wants him to.
Who's that?
He was from Twisters, and I forget what else he's been in. But
I know you're talking about.
Yeah,
Twisters.
Yeah,
he was the competition.
He was also in that last Top Gun movie. So,
the last what?
The latest Top Gun movie. He was in that too.
Oh, yes, he was. Yep. You're right. I remember.
But
he was a smart ass.
Yeah, totally. The clip I saw, Tom Cruise was like, I think he should be the new lead.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that too. I can actually see that. But yeah, I get. Joe, did you find Lilo and Stitch on your? You know what?
I haven't tried yet. There's debate in the household. Like the kids don't want to see it.
Really?
Yeah.
I
listened to a 30-minute rant from my stepdaughter yesterday about how much it sucks, and so.
Really?
She hasn't even seen it, but yeah. Well, but I mean, it's like one of those things. Like, hey, if you grew up with something and you love something, and they remake it,
I agree.
New way, and so
I agree.
I think some of the messaging is a little different, or very different.
I think it's very different.
It was one or two. It was one or two at the box office.
Yeah, it was number one. It actually blew Mission Impossible out the water.
Yep.
Wow. The kids, man.
And it's actually on like almost double the screens that Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and like, I'm out of the remakes that are happening this summer, I think I'm more inclined to, I'm going to force them. I'm going to take them to go see How to Train Your Dragon. I'm really interested in that because it's the same.
Well, there's your point right there.
Yeah, same director of both of them. He directed all three animated.
I love the original How to Make Your Dragon. When I heard How to Train Your Dragon, and when I heard this come out, and I saw some clips or whatever, I said, why?
Yes.
Why? I mean,
yes.
But it's the same director. It's the same guy who directed and wrote the first.
Yeah, but still, why? Why?
He wanted to.
You did it once.
He wants to. He loves the world, and I think that one looks good personally.
He does. I did see a rant where the lady walked out of an early screening because she was so mad.
Oh, really?
So we'll see. So I'm setting expectations low, but I want to see it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I need to see it. Who is this here?
I do. I love that world as well. So I mean, it could be. I'm just disappointed they didn't go and do a new story. That would have been really cool.
Well, yeah, I'm interested in seeing that game that Joe showed as a movie. It was while it was playing and while Joe was talking about it, first thing came to my mind was, of course, number one was Lost. That came in my brain, and then Mockingjay.
Hunger Games. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mark.
Next thing came to Hunger Games.
Yeah, Mark, listen, you need to check out the soundtrack for that game, okay? It was done by a small French orchestra.
Did you send it to me? Did you send it to me?
No, I will though. It's an amazing soundtrack, and like it has those really bright French accent, like singing, like almost like Enya, with the voice.
That's really cool.
So beautiful, but it's like all orchestra. There's only like maybe a 10-piece or something like that, but they sound
really.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
It's right up your alley. It's right up your alley.
Okay, so send me a link so I can listen to it probably at work tomorrow or something or whatever. I'm not pushing you to find it now and to send it
Do
to
you
me. But
do you Spotify?
no, I haven't Spotify'd in years.
Okay. What music service do you use?
YouTube.
Okay. it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
It is?
Yeah.
Good. Because that's when I want to listen to it. Yeah. Because I listen to all my music on YouTube at work.
Yeah.
I'll send it to both of you guys.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great.
I would love that.
Well, look, dudes. Shit, man. I need to go to bed.
Yeah, it's late for you guys.
Yeah.
Past my bedtime. I missed Andy Griffin. Oh my God.
Oh man.
This is becoming a trend. You might as well just get used to the nights we do Voices for Fandom. You're not watching Andy Griffith because it happened last time too.
Did it?
Yes, it did. It did indeed.
It did.
I hate your memory, man. I'm serious. It's terrible. Well, look, everybody who's still up, because I see some numbers still up there watching us. Thank you for joining us. This is Voices from Fandom.
Yes.
See us in 30 days. Whatever that Wednesday is in 30 days. And we'll have some new stuff for you. Of course, we'll be advertising along the way. It was a great show. Dan MADSEN was here. So Mark Street, Joe Thompson, thank you guys so much for being a part of this show.
Yeah.
As always.
Yes.
And
I love it.
At least
thank you so much.
Yeah, I got a little bit of food in my gut. Now I gotta go to work tomorrow. Oh my God. I want to retire. Take care, guys.
See you, everyone.
Guys, see you later. You don't have to hang around. Ciao.